Hey everybody, it's your girl Shannon here. And you know we're about to dive into a juicy one today because let's be real, we're all a little obsessed with true crime, aren't we? I mean, why else would we be here? But seriously, why are we so drawn to these dark, often terrifying stories? You know the drill. You've got your coziest blanket, your favorite snacks, and a documentary queued up about a crime so chilling it makes your spine tingle. You're sitting there like, oh my god, this is awful, but also, tell me everything. Am I right? And let's be real. Afterward, you double-check your locks, maybe Google self-defense classes, and basically swear you'll never trust anyone ever again. It's like a whole mood. But why? Why do we willingly dive into these dark, twisted stories? That's what we're going to dig into today. Today, we're unraveling the psychology behind our true crime addiction. Buckle up, babes. It's going to get interesting. Okay, first things first, let's talk about the thrill factor. True crime is scary, like really scary sometimes. But it's the good kind of scary, you know? It's like watching a horror movie, but with real people and even higher stakes. When you're watching a documentary or listening to a podcast, you're safe on your couch, maybe with your dog curled up next to you. Your brain knows you're not in any actual danger, but it still gets that adrenaline rush. Psychologists even have a name for it, a controlled fear experience. Think about it like a roller coaster. You get the thrill of danger, the anticipation, the feeling of your stomach dropping out from under you. But deep down, you know you're not actually going to fly off the tracks. It's the same with true crime. It gives you all the chills and suspense, all the drama and intrigue, but from the comfort of your living room. And let's be real, there's something oddly satisfying about that, right? And it's not just about the adrenaline rush, right? There's also this element of morbid curiosity that sucks us in. Humans are naturally curious creatures, and that curiosity peaks when it comes to things we can't explain. We crave order, we crave logic, and true crime often throws all of that out the window. It forces us to confront the darkest parts of humanity, the parts we don't want to believe exist. But at the same time, we can't look away. It's why you'll find yourself asking questions like, how could someone do that? What were they thinking? Could this happen to me? We need to understand, even when it's terrifying. And that's part of what makes true crime so addictive. It's like a puzzle we can't help but try to solve, even when the pieces make us want to hide under the covers. This need to understand, to make sense of the senseless, it goes beyond just curiosity, though. Because true crime doesn't just show us the what of a crime, it forces us to confront the why. It dives into the darkest corners of humanity, the how and why behind unthinkable acts. We see the perpetrators not just as monsters, but as people, flawed and often deeply troubled people, with their own stories and motivations. And as much as we might not want to admit it, there's a part of us that wants to understand what makes them tick. What happened in their lives to lead them down such a dark path? Was it nature or nurture? Were there warning signs? Our brains are wired to look for patterns, to connect the dots, and true crime gives us a whole lot of dots to connect. It's like a morbidly fascinating puzzle, and we're all trying to figure out how the pieces fit together. But it's not just about understanding the killers, is it? True crime also forces us to confront our own vulnerabilities. It makes us ask those uncomfortable questions about ourselves, about our own capacity for darkness. Could I ever be capable of something like that? What separates me from someone who does? It's a scary thought, but it's also a human one. We all have darkness inside of us, and true crime holds up a mirror to that darkness. And you know what? Sometimes facing that darkness, even indirectly, can be strangely comforting. Because for most of us, the answer to that question, could I ever do something like that, is a resounding no. And there's a weird sense of relief in realizing, wow, I'm nothing like them. It reminds us of our own humanity, our own moral compass, and that, my friends, can be a powerful thing. Okay, let's be real for a sec. We all have a little bit of a dark side, don't we? It's like that forbidden drawer you're not supposed to open. True crime lets us explore that darkness without doing anything bad. We get to ask ourselves the big, uncomfortable questions. Could I ever rob a bank? Could I ever hide a body? Don't worry, I'm not judging. It's totally normal to be curious about these things. It's human nature to wonder what makes people snap, to try and understand the line between good and evil. And you know what's kind of comforting about all this? Usually the answer is a big fat nope, not me. You hear about these crazy cases and you're like, oh my God, I would never, in a million years. It's like a weird reassurance that you're actually a pretty decent person. But then there's that tiny little voice in the back of your head, that little devil on your shoulder whispering, but what if? And that, my friends, is what keeps us coming back for more. And this fascination with evil isn't anything new. Think about it. Humans have been telling spooky stories and gossiping about the creepy neighbor since, forever. Remember those scary tales your grandma used to tell? Yeah, those were basically the OG true crime stories. We're drawn to these stories because they tap into something primal within us. They remind us that the world can be a dangerous place and that bad things can happen, even to good people. And as much as we try to pretend it doesn't exist, evil is a part of the human experience. But here's the thing. Exploring these dark stories through true crime allows us to process them safely. It's like dipping your toe into the deep end of the pool without actually having to jump in. You get a little taste of the danger, the suspense, the adrenaline rush, all from the comfort of your couch. So next time you're feeling a little guilty about your true crime obsession, just remember, you're not alone. It's in our DNA to be fascinated by the dark side. And hey, at least we're learning something from it, right? Right? All right, let's get real. One of the most addictive things about true crime is trying to understand the mind of a killer. It's like trying to solve the most twisted puzzle ever, except the pieces are made of trauma, mental illness, and a whole lot of messed up stuff. We become obsessed with their childhoods, their relationships, their weird quirks. Was it that creepy doll they had as a kid? That time they got rejected in high school? We want to pinpoint that exact moment they went from seemingly normal to, well, a killer. And don't even get me started on the motives. Was it a crime of passion, revenge, or were they just bored? Sometimes the scariest killers are the ones who seem to have no motive at all. It just doesn't make sense, and our brains hate not having answers. But that's the thing about true crime. It keeps us guessing. It's like a never-ending game of Clue, except instead of Colonel Mustard in the library, it's a real person who did something truly awful. And we can't help but try to figure out how they did it, and more importantly, why. And you know what really gets us hooked? Those unexpected twists and turns. You think you've got it all figured out, you're like, it's totally the quiet neighbor with the secret basement, and bam, plot twist, it's the friendly mailman with a double life. Our brains love surprises, especially when it comes to true crime. It's like, just when you think the case couldn't get any crazier, the documentary throws you a curveball that sends you spiraling down a whole new rabbit hole of theories and suspicions. And let's be real, we secretly live for those moments when the documentary reveals the killer was hiding in plain sight. You know, they were the seemingly charming neighbor, the helpful coworker, the pillar of the community that nobody ever suspected. It's both terrifying and totally enthralling. So yeah, we're fascinated by the psychology of killers. We want to understand what makes them tick, what drives them to do the unthinkable. But maybe, just maybe, we're also a little addicted to the thrill of the unexpected, to the moments that make us gasp and say, oh my God, I never saw that coming. Okay, so we've talked about the dark side, the psychology of killers, all the creepy stuff. But here's the thing about true crime. It's not just about being scared. It can actually be pretty empowering too. Hear me out on this one. When we watch these stories about survival, about people facing their fears and fighting back, it activates this primal instinct in us. We start imagining how we would react in those situations. Could we outsmart a kidnapper? Escape a burning building? It's like mental self-defense training, but with way better snacks. And let's be real, there's a certain comfort in being prepared, even if it's just in our heads. It's like, after watching a documentary about a stalker, I'm definitely checking my back seat twice before getting in the car. And yeah, maybe I'm being a little extra, but hey, better safe than sorry, right? True crime gives us a sense of control in a world that can often feel chaotic and unpredictable. It's like, okay, I can't control everything, but I can at least be aware of the dangers and learn how to protect myself. And that, my friends, is a powerful feeling. And you know what's truly inspiring? Hearing the stories of survivors. These are the people who stared evil in the face and lived to tell the tale. They're the ones who fought back, who outsmarted their attackers, who never gave up hope. Their stories are a reminder that even in the darkest of times, courage and resilience can prevail. And listening to them, learning from their experiences, it's like they're giving us a crash course in badassery. We start to internalize their stories, their tips, their survival strategies. Always trust your gut. Never go out alone at night. Invest in a good security system. Okay, maybe some of those are a bit extreme, but you get the point. True crime doesn't just show us the darkness. It also shines a light on the strength and resilience of the human spirit. It reminds us that even in the face of unimaginable horror, there is hope, there is courage, and there is always a reason to keep fighting. And that, my friends, is what makes true crime so much more than just entertainment. Okay, let's talk about the science behind this true crime obsession. Because sis, it's not just a coincidence that you find yourself clicking on one more episode at 2 in the morning. Our brains are wired to crave the thrill of a good mystery, and true crime delivers that in spades. Every plot twist, every shocking revelation, every time the killer is finally unmasked, bam! Your brain gets a hit of dopamine. It's like winning the lottery for your brain, except instead of $1 million, you get the satisfaction of figuring out who done it. And just like any other addictive substance, our brains start to crave that dopamine rush. Suddenly, listening to a podcast about a serial killer while you're folding laundry doesn't seem so strange. You tell yourself, just one more episode, but let's be real, we've all been there. One episode turns into two turns into 4, and before you know it, the sun's coming up and you haven't slept a wink because you were busy trying to solve a cold case from 1987. This is where the true crime binge cycle begins. You finish one documentary, feeling that sense of accomplishment like you've just cracked the case yourself. But then, that feeling fades, and you're left wanting more. So, you start another one, and another. It's like potato chips, you can't just have one. And before you know it, you're knee-deep in forensic evidence, suspect interviews, and dramatic reenactments, wondering how your life got so deliciously dark. And honestly, there's no shame in the game. We all have our vices, and if yours happens to be unraveling the psychology of a serial killer while sipping your morning coffee, then you do you, boo. Just maybe don't judge me when I tell you about the new true crime podcast I'm obsessed with, because chances are you'll be just as hooked as I am after one episode. Let's be real. True crime has become a weird and wonderful part of our social lives. I mean, when was the last time you gasped out loud at a shocking plot twist and immediately texted your bestie to say, "Dude, you have to watch this"? We swap podcast recommendations like they're the latest fashion trends. And suddenly, book clubs are dissecting the psychology of serial killers instead of the latest Oprah pick. And honestly, I'm not mad at it. There's a strange sense of camaraderie that comes from bonding over these dark and twisted stories. It's like we're all part of this exclusive club, exchanging theories, dissecting evidence, and collectively trying to understand the minds of people who do really messed up things. But it's not just about the thrill of the mystery, right? There's something deeper at play here. When we share these stories with each other, we're also connecting on a human level. We're acknowledging the darkness that exists in the world, and maybe, just maybe, finding some comfort in knowing we're not alone in our fascination with it. And let's not forget the memes, guys. True crime memes are a whole other level of obsession, and honestly, some of them are pure comedic genius. Who knew that murder and mayhem could be so damn funny? It's this weird dark humor that brings us together too. It's like we're all in on the joke, acknowledging the absurdity of it all while simultaneously being completely captivated by the stories. So, the next time you find yourself deep in conversation about a particularly gruesome murder case, don't be ashamed. Embrace the weirdness, my friend. Because in the world of true crime, it's okay to bond over the dark side. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the media. Because let's be real, they know exactly what they're doing, fueling our true crime addiction with an endless stream of documentaries, podcasts, and TV shows. They're like that friend who keeps bringing you another glass of wine even though you swore you were done after one. And you know what? We keep saying yes. Netflix is basically the true crime headquarters these days, with more documentaries than you can shake a bloody knife at. And don't even get me started on the podcasts. Every time I open my podcast app, there's like 10 new true crime shows just begging to be binged. And the craziest part? We just can't get enough. The media knows this, so they keep upping the ante, delivering stories that are more shocking, more twisted, and more binge-worthy than ever before. It's like a competition to see who can find the wildest, most unbelievable case out there. And you know what? I'm here for it. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm not saying it's wrong either. It's just reality, you know? But on a serious note, it's important to remember that behind every headline, every podcast episode, every documentary, there are real people whose lives have been tragically impacted by these crimes. So, while we're busy indulging in our true crime obsession, let's try to be mindful of the victims and their families. Because as entertaining as these stories can be, they're not just entertainment. They're a stark reminder of the darkness that exists in our world. One of the most satisfying things about true crime is when the bad guy gets caught. It's like finally scratching an itch you couldn't reach. We spend hours engrossed in these cases, piecing together the puzzle. And when they finally slap the cuffs on the culprit, it's like a weight lifts off your shoulders. It feels good to know that justice has been served. But let's not sugarcoat it, you guys. The reality is, not every case has a happy ending. Sometimes the killer gets away. Those unsolved cases, they mess you up. It's like reading a book with the last few pages ripped out. You're left feeling frustrated, angry, and maybe even a little scared. Because if the killer is still out there, who's to say they won't strike again? It's a harsh reminder that the world isn't always fair. Sometimes the bad guys do win, at least for a while. But those unsolved mysteries remind us to be vigilant and protect ourselves. Okay, let's be real. Not everyone's binging Making a Murderer on a Friday night, and that's totally cool. Some people just aren't into true crime, and you know what? More power to them. Maybe they'd rather chill with a rom-com and a face mask, and hey, I get it. For some, true crime can be a bit too intense, too dark, maybe even too real. It's like that extra shot of espresso. Some people thrive on it, and some people are left shaking, you know? And that's okay. Our brains are wired differently, and we all have different things that give us the heebie-jeebies or tickle our curiosity bone. It's all about what your brain can handle. Some people are like emotional sponges, soaking up all the feels, and true crime just leaves them feeling drained. Others can compartmentalize, separating the darkness of the story from their own reality. And hey, if you're one of those people who can watch a whole season of Mindhunter and sleep like a baby, I applaud you. The point is, there's no judgment here. You do you. If true crime isn't your thing, that doesn't make you any less interesting or intelligent. It just means you've got different tastes. And that's what makes the world so beautifully weird and diverse, right? If you've got that friend who's constantly trying to convert you to the true crime side, just be like, girl, I love you, but please, no more serial killer documentaries. It's like trying to force someone to love black licorice. Some people are born to appreciate it, and some people are just gonna make a face. And if you're the one who's super passionate about true crime, don't take it personally if your bestie isn't as obsessed. It's not a reflection on your taste, I promise. It's like anything else. Music, fashion, food. We all have our preferences. Plus, think of it this way. You get to be the resident true crime expert. You can drop all the fascinating facts and creepy theories at parties, and everyone will be like, whoa, where did you learn that? It's your time to shine, babe. So, to all my true crime avoiders out there, keep on living your best life. There's a whole world of entertainment out there, from baking shows to reality TV to documentaries about, like, cute penguins. Find your happy place and enjoy it judgment-free. All right, my fellow true crime junkies, let's have a little chat. As much as I love diving into a good mystery, we gotta keep it real. It's easy to get sucked into the world of true crime, to the point where you're side-eyeing everyone at the grocery store like they might be a suspect in a cold case. But here's the thing, true crime is a genre, not a lifestyle. It's entertainment, and while it can teach us valuable lessons about safety and human nature, we can't let it consume us or dictate our every move. We've got to find a balance, you know? If you find yourself constantly jumping at shadows, carrying pepper spray everywhere you go, or suspecting your mailman of being a secret assassin, it might be time to take a step back from the true crime rabbit hole. Remember those cute penguin documentaries I mentioned earlier? Yeah, maybe cue one of those up instead of the Ted Bundy tapes for a change of pace. Your nervous system will thank you. Look, I get it. True crime is addictive. Those cliffhangers, the shocking twists, the "I can't believe they just said that" moments, it's a wild ride. But just like any other indulgence, too much of a good thing can have its downsides. If you're finding it hard to sleep, if you're constantly anxious, or if you're starting to see the world through a lens of suspicion and fear, it's time to hit the pause button on the true crime marathon. Remember, these stories, as gripping as they are still relatively rare. The chances of you encountering a real-life Dexter Morgan at your local coffee shop are pretty slim. So, take a deep breath, put on your happy face, and go for a walk in the sunshine. Reconnect with the world outside of true crime and remind yourself that there's still beauty, kindness, and normalcy to be found. Our obsession with true crime is a cocktail of curiosity, adrenaline, and morbid fascination. It teaches us about red flags and self-defense, but don't let it consume you. Balance murder mysteries with lighthearted fun, and remember the world is full of good people. Now go lock your doors and queue up your next episode. This is Shannon from Some Reasons Why. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I upload new videos twice a week, so hit that notification bell so you don't miss out. And don't forget to check out the suggested video popping up on your screen right now. Thanks for watching.